Neighbor took my parking spot after I shoveled. I poured water in his windshield. It was a cold winter day. 8 inches of snow had fallen the night before, and the wind chill made it feel as if it were in the negatives, Fahrenheit. I drive an all-wheel drive SUV, so I have no issues getting out. My wife, on the other hand, drives a Prius, which slides with the smallest amount of moisture on the road. My car was down at the time, so we had to take my wife's car. I spent 45 minutes in the freezing cold shoveling that car out so we could get to the store. We were gone for an hour, and when we came back, our neighbor had taken the spot I had shoveled. Our apartment complex doesn't have assigned parking, but in the winter, it's understood that if you shovel a spot, it's yours. So when I saw his car in the spot I had just shoveled, I was pretty pissed. I went inside and filled 2-gallon jugs of water, went back out and poured them on his windshield. Rinse and repeat. I must have poured about 10 gallons of water on his car. Being how cold it was already freezing by the time I poured the last gallon on. It sat like that overnight. The next morning I got to watch as he helplessly tried to scrape all of these layers of ice off his windshield. Don't take my goddamn parking spot. Edit. You guys need to chill. This isn't Am I the A-hole post. I'm not looking for judgment because I already know I'm an asshole. The point of this sub is to tell stories of petty revenge. I'd say I was being pretty damn petty at it too. Sorry, I find it so funny people telling me I committed vandalism. No damage was done except for wasting like 5-10 minutes of his time. Ever hear of freezing rain? It does the same thing I did to his car. Never does any damage. This was also many years ago, and the cops haven't come to arrest me yet. I think I'm good.
Next story.
I've been calling my sister by her full given name when she dead names my niece. My brother's kid, 22, female, came out as trans on her 21st birthday about a year ago and changed her name from Lance to Lacey, fake names. Most of our family accepted. It and the ones who didn't weren't close anyway, except our sister Eva, 45 female. We are a Native American family with a lot of creative names, and my sister's birth name is something close to Evangeline, but she decided to go by Eva after. A white kid said her name was Resit Out, low-class/stereotypical name from an Indian reservation. She's insisted on Eva for about 35 years, and we all obliged. Now, she's regularly been calling my trans niece by her dead name Lance since she came out as trans, so I started calling her Evangeline, which she hates. The whole family caught on and have only been referring to her as Evangeline for about a year now, and she is furious every time she comes to family events. Recently, she's been calling me by my full first name to bother me. My first name is a portmanteau hyphenation of my mom's 4 sisters' name. Something like Alexiana Dorothique, but wackier. People have always called me AD or Lexi, or my brother called me Dodo since he is a kid. I love my full first names, but it's cumbersome to use an 8-syllable name regularly. Well, my full name caught on with family and friends, just to spite. Evangeline, we have all reverted back to our full names instead of nicknames. Our dad is no longer Frank, he's Franklin. Our mom is no longer Roz, she is Rosalind. Brother is no longer Nate, he is Nathaniel. Sister-in-law is no longer Kate, she is Catherine, etc. All fake names. This has truly driven Evangeline away, which was the plan in the first place. Lacey makes for better company, so good riddance to one crappy sister.
Next story.
You want to try to take 9 inches of our property? We will take 20 of yours. We have lived in our house for about 8 years in a rural neighborhood in Arizona. About a year ago, this dude from California bought the lot next to us and threw a fit about the stuff we had on the property line. We had put a single fence pole vaguely where the property line was. We hadn't had any sort of land survey done. It was supposed to just be a temporary marker that became a permanent marker. Dude was absolutely livid that we had vehicles parked on his property. The very tip of one of our cars was touching the established boundary. He threatened to have our vehicle towed. So we simply had an actual land survey done, and it turned out the property line was a good 20 inches into his property. Homeboy should have just let sleeping dogs lie and not been an asshole about a few inches. Edit. I had some journalists reach out to me and ask for some more comments, so here are the updates you asked for. Feel free to ask more questions for more clarifications, or ask again if I missed anything. It's a small rural neighborhood in the mountains of Arizona. All the houses are 3 5-acre horse properties. The roads are all dirt and unmaintained. It used to be a very understandable place to live, but in the last few years it has been developed and property values have been going up, quadrupling since we moved here in 2016. This has attracted a crowd of people who care what yards look like who simply weren't here when this was cheap. This neighbor is one of these new people. We moved here specifically because the neighborhood had a bunch of messy yards already, and we wanted to also have lenient neighbors. We lived in harmony with our neighbor's junky yards for years. The neighbor introduced himself by calling the county on a bunch of us anonymously. We knew he called on us because he was bragging about calling the county on several other of the neighbors for their messy yard, so whether he intentionally included us in the report or not, he brought the inspectors to the neighborhood. He came, on our property by at least 40 inches, before there was a fence, to closely examine our piles of scrap metal. We caught this on camera and confronted him in text. It turned out he was very angry that he had purchased land next to a pseudo-scrap yard. We had several cars in various stages of disassembly and piles of materials. Keep in mind, this is the country. This is normal out here. We're on 5-acre lots. Another detail that I missed in my original post, he isn't even living on this lot. He bought a lot with a very small cabin, 3 houses down, along with the lot next to us with the intention of turning it into an income property. After we confronted him in text, he confronted us in person in our front yard, leaning against our "no" trespassing sign and screaming obscenities at us. We haven't seen him since we saw him on our security camera observing the survey markers, dismayed. It's entirely possible that we entirely chased him out of the neighborhood. The people on the other side of his lot, who have an equally trashed yard from their small-scale pig farming operation that he should have known existed before buying. The land had such a bad experience with him that she had a restraining order on him. They are also having a potentially equally funny dispute about a shed that she built fully on his lot over 15 years ago, which means they're going to have to go to court over who now owns it, and our adverse possession laws are certainly on her side. Currently, we are building an ugly fence on the newly surveyed property line.
Next story.
Boss chiseled me out of $100 and paid the price. I'm a contractor. While working on a project in a very remote location, I arranged to buy and bring 2 rounds of breakfast tacos for the staff of the county facility where I would be working for the next week in exchange for free copy privileges. The boss gave approval on the phone, and the total for the tacos that week came out to just over $100, a great exchange as the copy budget was upwards of $1,000. I submitted my receipts along with the supporting CC statement at the end of the billing cycle, between a week and 2 weeks after he'd verbally approved the expense. It was declined. I wasn't too angry, but a deal's a deal, and I called the boss to remind him he had approved the expense. His response? "You should have gotten it in writing." Pissed me off royally, but I finished the project as promised and was working on another project for another client less than a week later. A couple of months go by, and the boss who'd chiseled me out of the money called to see if I was available to work on another project beginning on the 1st of the next month, and after some haggling, I agreed. The work schedule would be tight, and, in his words, this was an all-hands-on-deck project with nights and weekends expected. I was also told this was a new client and they wanted to impress. A couple of days before the project was set to begin, the chiseler called to tell me the engagement paperwork was on the way and check my email. I told him I had decided not to work the project after all, and he was furious. He screamed, "You agreed to work on this project weeks ago." I repeated his words verbatim. "You should have gotten it in writing."
Next story.
Want to block my driveway, officer? It's going to be another minute or 2 on coffee. About a decade ago, I worked an early morning shift at a fast food restaurant. We opened at 6 a.m., so I had to be at work at 5 a.m. I would leave my house at about 4:45 a.m. every morning. My management was pretty relaxed about the opening shift. Clocking in up to 10 minutes late wasn't really an ordeal, as long as you showed up ready to go. I came outside at 4:45 to find that a local police officer has pulled someone over and is now blocking my driveway. This has happened before, but normally in the afternoon, and normally I just ask the officer to move forwards or back a couple of feet, and then I pull in or out of the driveway. No sweat. This officer, however, angrily informs me that I will have to wait till he's done. I snap a picture of his car, text it to my manager, and explain my tardiness. Minutes later, the police officer finally moves. I scramble into the car and head to work. I get there 15 minutes before we open. I frantically start to brew tea, fetch ice, having to condense my 50-minute routine into 15. I almost forgot to brew coffee. Opening time rolls around, and the first group of customers come in. It's a group of our local police officers led by the captain. I guess they're about to do a shift change. One of the officers in the group is the one who blocked my driveway. Anyway, the captain orders coffee, and I regretfully inform him that there's a 5-minute wait on coffee because I got to work extremely late. Captain asks why, so I pulled out my phone and explained that one of his officers blocked my driveway for 45 minutes for a routine traffic stop. Captain proceeds to chew out that officer in front of all of his colleagues and exclaims that nothing, short of a life or death emergency, should block my driveway if it will interfere with him getting his morning coffee. It was never blocked again, and the captain always got his coffee at 6 a.m. without interruption.
Next story.
My ex cheated, so I refunded a gift and now she's livid. My ex broke up with me just about a year into us dating. In hindsight, she was awful, but I was blind to it all. She broke up with me over the phone, which seemed a little informal from all the time we spent together. Fast forward a week after that, several individuals connected to her, but not each other, confirmed she was in fact seeing another man. I didn't confront her about it because I realized that things just don't work out sometimes. It was just the way she went about it that irked me. I'm old enough, late 30s, to accept that people are just assholes. But I also felt like she was getting away with something without feeling even a bit of remorse. The breakup was the only contact. No calls or texts occurred after that over a year ago. I remembered for Christmas that I bought her, us, a really expensive couples massage spa package because she would always say how she wanted to do something like that. I had purchased some big package from a local place that cost roughly $600. I obviously didn't have the certificate with me. I decided to go to the spa and make up a story of how I lost the certificate. I showed them the receipt. Always keep those. And showed him my credit card charge. They wound up reissuing me a gift card and canceling the other. That was over a year ago, and frankly, I forgot about it. Today I get a call from her, first contact in a year since breaking up, and she's screaming at me over the phone that the gift certificate is no good and the spa place accused her of stealing and what a piece of shit I was for reporting it to. Be such. I called the guy, he said he told her it was reported stolen. I just politely explained I didn't think she was deserving of it, and if she really wanted to, she could just have Mark, dude she was banging, pay for new one. I then hung up. Gonna make an appointment to use that card with my new girlfriend soon. Mission accomplished.
That's all the stories for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share with your friends. I'm a bit shy and prefer to stay behind the scenes, so I create these faceless Reddit story videos to bring you the best stories without stepping in front of the camera. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.